Kaustubha Das here with the big announcement for Wisdom of the Sages listeners. This August will be Ashram Month at the Super Soul Farm. Simple ashram living, rising early, morning kirtan, yoga and pranayama, healthy vegan and vegetarian meals, farm seva and being immersed in nature, and then gathering in the evenings for kirtan and readings. Plus, each week we'll have a lead presenter teaching a different facet of the philosophy and lifestyle of Bhakti Yoga. Week number 1 will be the exceptional Bhakti Lata teaching a course called The Beauty of Bhakti, bringing the culture of love and devotion into our lives. Week number 2 is my brother from another mother, Raghunath, teaching Falling in Love with Divinity, the Bhakti-yogi's method for opening the heart. And week number 3 is myself with a course called Following the Path, examining the history and teachings of Bhakti Yoga. You can come for 1, 2, or all 3 weeks, and the pricing is by donation. For more dates and information, go to wisdomofthesages.com/events. Peace. Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Come on!
Live from the Bhakti Center, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Did I say live from the Bhakti Center?
I think you did.
Okay, and I'm at the Bhakti Center with a senior educator at the Bhakti Center. That's a Krishna miracle. We had a great day yesterday, and I'm seeing all these people on Zoom that we've been hanging out with either this weekend or this whole week or right in front of our faces. This is a big group we have here for the Wisdom of the Sages retreat at the Bhakti Center. It's our second annual one, and I had a great time. It was an exhausting time, I will say that, but there was such great pleasure. And Kaustubha gave this nice little intention before the class, before the parade. He said, you know, it's very social. Stay really focused, really go, keep it internal, even though it's very external. And I failed completely. I just, well, you know, I mean, I had a spiritual experience, but I will say, there is a lot of people. It's a very spiritually social. There's people I haven't seen in years. I really wanted to bow down to, offer my obeisance to, embrace, tell them I miss them. So, and that maybe wasn't an internal, like focused meditation, but it was good for me. I saw Yogeshwar, I saw Gauravani, I saw, you know, Radhanath Swami and Satchidananda Maharaj were there, and just old friends, people that we knew in the ashram, Ranavir, right? These are guys like we looked up to, like Ranavir's here, Ranavir, you know.
Did you see Haryashra?
I did not see Haryashra.
I didn't either.
I
Haryashra,
heard
you're
he was
listening out there.
We were looking for you.
Yeah, where were you?
And then just being in New York, it's got its magic in itself. We were just right a moment ago. We were, you know, getting ready for class, and I saw someone looking through the doorway, but I'm very far and I was squinting, which is why I'm wearing Kaustubha's glasses today. And he was bowing like this to me, and I was like, I couldn't see it, and I realized it's Pradyumna Prabhu, the original editor of the Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's personal, you know, secretary or assistant.
Sanskrit editor of all his books.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a story. So anyway, we just begged him to come in. I had a whole plan for you guys this morning, but he just showed up, and we just went with him, and he talked to us about the origins of, you know, Sanskrit and the Munis and the Rishis, and it was just great. The people that you meet when you're walking down the street here, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And we're wrapping it up today. And we love having these people live. And we had a night. Oh, it was great yesterday. The most grounding thing I did yesterday was everybody came over to the Wisdom of the Sages table at the Rath Yatra, and we just sat down and we sang. And it just started raining. And it was in a very pleasant way. And we just sang in the rain together. And no one even like noticed it was raining.
It was like a auspicious rain.
Yeah, it was an auspicious.
Snana.
There are some suspicious rains, and that was an auspicious rain.
All right.
How are you?
I'm very tired, but it's the kind of tired that you feel good when you're tired like this. Like it's like,
You put in a hard day's work,
yeah,
and then you
should
feel good.
feel tired. Not at the beginning of the day, though.
Yeah,
but-
Mara doesn't want to hear it. Mara worked from 6 a.m. catering to midnight. What is that?
It's 12 hours.
18 hours.
No,
6
that's
hours.
more.
Sorry, it's 18 hours.
That's 18 hours. That's not. I thought it was like 12 hours. Big deal. I've worked 12 hours. That's 18 hours.
That's too much work, Mara.
That's, I
It's too
know.
much work.
Unless they're paying you $1 million, it's still too much work.
That's too much.
Anyway, it's Q&A day today. Any other questions?
Can I do some announcements?
Oh yeah. Sorry, we're discombobulated.
It's okay. We have Bhakti Recovery Group meeting today at 9:30, and there's still spaces available for Wisdom of the Sages Italy. Everybody's looking at you guys enviously in New York and wants to join the Wisdom of the Sages program, so they can join in Italy in July.
I met so many others yesterday. It was
Yeah, I got to say hello to all the others. Thank you for coming to the table. It was wonderful to meet you all.
just coming up and saying we listen to the show like every day. There's so many everyday others. That's a song. Everyday others. Okay.
All right, let's take a question, shall we?
Yeah. So anyway, if you're listening to this on Facebook, this is our daily study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but on Saturdays or Sundays in some cases, we do questions and answers. So if you want to join us live on Instagram, or you can listen to it, live on Zoom, you can email Mara, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, or you can listen to the show wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. Okay. This is from Danielle Tompkins from the UK via email. And if you have a question, you can also write it in wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Hi, Wisdom of the Sages team. Firstly, thank you for all that you do. I am new to Bhakti, and it is enriching my life and has become the source of light in some dark times. Forgive me if this is such an obvious question, but how can one overcome indulging in the senses? It's obvious, but necessary to talk about. I am increasingly aware of how distracting and powerful sense gratification and indulgence is. And I feel guilt after I indulge. Shame on you. Shame, you sinful woman. I know the answer is just to stop indulging. That is a good answer. But the senses and the mind are so powerful at times. I recognize this more lately. It leads me to feel unworthy of Krishna's love when I'm not able to give up all that he wants us to give up. And I get so frustrated and anxious and then depressed that I'm not able to do everything or give up everything right away. And so begins the lamentation. It's like one of those shame spirals, like in the water when they get those whirlwinds in the water and you get sucked like a toilet. You start to hate yourself, and I hate myself because I overate, and I overate because I hate myself, and it just goes on like that forever. Those feelings were present in my life before learning of Bhakti, but they still continue to impact me. I'm also in therapy, but am seeking spiritual perspective on dealing with these feelings. I am wondering if you had any thoughts on dealing with these feelings, any experience with this in your early days of Bhakti, or knew of anyone who also felt like this. I know this is like the core of Bhakti, so forgive me if this is too obvious a question. I hope this makes sense and isn't too long of a question. Thank you once again. Great question.
Very good question.
Very good question.
What's the answer?
Oh, it's quite simple. You're doing everything wrong. No, we don't realize. Thank you for asking, Danielle. And then I'm interested how Kaustubha is going to angle this one. The senses are ridiculous, out of control. And in the yoga, it is not, I'm going to correct you, it's not the core of Bhakti. But it assists you in your Bhakti. Krishna is not hating you for not being able to control your senses. Krishna is not a God of hate. Krishna is a God of love. Krishna is the Lord of love. And Krishna loves us, but he gives us tools to assist us to approach him better. Even in your frustration in controlling your senses, because you can't get closer to Krishna, that's a type of bhakti. Even feeling that sadness, I'm so far from Krishna because I can't control. That sentiment is bhakti yoga. So it's actually quite beautiful that you do even care like this. The only person we're hurting by lack of sense, we're not hurting Krishna, and Krishna doesn't want to see us hurt. He's just giving us tools so we can help ourselves. Now, one common tool they speak about in the Yoga Sutras, as well as the Bhagavad Gita, is regulation of the senses. People do that even with their diet. They can't control their diet, so they say it's become it's sort of an Ayurvedic thing, but it's become very, very popular now. Is what do they call it now? Intermittent fasting. You know, if you tend to overeat, well, okay, you eat for a window of time. You know, and of course, a big thing in bhakti is we're not just eating in a window of time. Like my first meal is at noon, and then I stop eating at 5. You know, if you tend to be a late night snacker, like some people I know. Me. I meant me. So you have some windows of time when you eat. But if it's even tougher than that, if something like beer, you know, people like, I just heard you guys on Joe Rogan, and I can't stop drinking beer. You know, some people are very like into these anchors of their life. Then you regulate it. You figure out, okay, if I drink 5 beers a day, I'm going to change it to 1 beer a day. You regulate what you do.
Now you feel good about yourself.
And you feel a little better. You know, I drank the beer, I get my beer. And after a while, you realize, I don't even need this. Or you say, I drink only, just on the weekends. Okay, 1 day a weekend. Okay, you drink every day. Now you drink every other day. So with this type of regulation, the noose, right, of sense gratification, it becomes like a noose because we can't control it and we feel helpless. But once you start to regulate it, now you're telling the senses how to behave instead of them telling you how to behave. Otherwise, we have no freedom there. Those are the first things that come to mind. The regulation, and eventually it helps us develop a little detachment. By the way, me and Kaustubha were joking this morning. Kaustubha said, he said, what do you do? I said, I came back to the ashram. I'm staying in the ashram with my kids, and I needed a little break from the kids. And so I took a shower and took a nap, took a shit for 20 minutes, took a shower. And then I got this message from both Vivi and Kelly Skinner. They're like, hey, a bunch of us are at Double O, which is a vegan pizza place right up the road. You should come meet us. And I was like, well, they're both there. I'm going to meet both of them. And I'm just going to go get some vegan pizza. So Kaustubha said, where'd you go last night? I was like, vegan pizza. And he goes, I was like, yeah. He goes, how was it? I was like, delicious. He goes, was it prasad? I was like, I was like, it was vegan, and they even had gluten-free options. He goes, but it was all sin, wasn't it? You ate sin, didn't you?
It wasn't exactly.
I said, I went to the chef. I said, is this 100%? He said, yes, vegan. I said, no. Is it 100% sin? He said, oh, yes. Did anyone offer it? He goes, no. I go, do you think of God ever? He goes, no. Sometimes in an inimical way we do. I said, okay. With resentment and trauma. Wouldn't it be great? I mean, we have that. We have devotee restaurants, like 100% karma-free. We cook it. We offer it to God. Right? You do that at the inn? At the Waitsfield Inn with Srinivas and Kelly Skinner. If you ever go into Vermont, traveling through Vermont, need the Krishna conscious inn to stay in a charming village, we have prasadam at the Waitsfield Inn. It's amazing. Okay, so that's how when you do put your regulated window of time when you're going to eat, you offer that food with love. Kaustubha, what do you have to talk to Danielle?
Danielle, we're all in the same boat here together, right? It's not easy to control the senses. But Raghunath shared some good thoughts. You know, of course, there's the verse from the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You know the one I'm thinking about?
No.
Vishaya vinivartante. Niraharasya dehina.
Once you get a higher taste.
Yeah, there.
So once you get a higher taste for spiritual life, the lower tastes seem not as savory anymore. You know, once you like to, how many people, I'm just going to take a show of hands here in the live audience here. How many people, after they got into Bhakti, maybe they had some late night habits, but in Bhakti, you want to wake up early in an eagerness to hear. How many have developed that taste? Okay. So what happens is, you know, I'm staying up in the, you know, in New York City now, and the window's open, and it's just so loud. And I'm thinking to myself, what are they talking about at 3 a.m.? They're not saying, hey, let's get to Mughal the curtains are going to open soon. They're partying all night long, and it does, and even it doesn't sound like such a fun party. It sounds like hell on earth. So anyway, yeah. So when you develop a higher taste, you lose taste for those lower things.
So that's an essential part of the strategy for how you're going to control the senses. In what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching, and how the path of bhakti works, is it's not so much about renunciation of engagement with the senses, but it's about engaging the senses in something that's devotional, that you develop taste for. And then you're not trying to control the senses; they're becoming naturally, spontaneously controlled. Right? So that's one real important point. Another important point was, it was interesting because I set up the table, so I wasn't on the parade. When everyone was up there, and then people came up and started asking questions. And there's one really nice young lady, so she started asking me for advice. It was a little bit like romance advice, but it was it was a good question. She said, like, I fall in love with the person, and then when the relationship breaks, I have a very hard time like letting go of them. And I said, well, it's because the way the mind works, when there's some pleasure, then the mind wants to experience that pleasure again.
Right.
And because there's pleasure in romance, like a deep pleasure for most, so then it's not easy for the mind to let that go. It wants to replay that and again and again and again. But these tracks go the more that you think about it, and we were talking about this, the past week, where we're talking about, oh no, was it Henry David? Yeah, it was Henry David Thoreau who had that, you got to walk the path many, many times, and then it leaves. So when you've been meditating on something, enjoying something in the mind over and over and over and over again, and some of these things that you're probably trying to control your senses from are things that your entire life you may have identified as pleasurable, and you may have enjoyed it in your mind thousands, hundreds of thousands of times. It's not easy necessarily to change that over the night. So Raghunath's point, I think, was a really essential one. It's like, don't feel frustrated or upset that you can't change it overnight. You can't go cold turkey, but take a step forward, and then take another step forward, and take another step forward. And there's two, and you see, there's two things. On the one hand, there's your own effort and the own mechanism that you use to try to control the senses. And that's really important, that you put in that effort. But the other thing is, on our path, you really pray. You understand that the mind is very difficult to master. And so you just say, I'm going to put in my effort. I'm going to take my steps. I had this issue. I'm going to take one step forward, and then next week I'm going to take another step forward. But meanwhile, you're praying to Krishna. Krishna's in your heart, So you pray to Krishna within the heart, that I want to let go of these things. I want you, and I want your service, and I really don't want anything else. Now, my mind is programmed to want so many other things. But I don't, so please, this is my prayer. Please allow me to become free from the control of my mind, so that I can give myself to you, because that's what I want. And then you'd be surprised. And then, and you add that to that, regular chanting, right? Bring your mind to, like, on a daily basis, even if it's only one round a day, it can really, really make a difference in one's ability to shift their attention and shift their mind and shift their desires. So all these things are there, but I think we also need to address the feelings that you're having of unworthiness because of this too, right? Because, that kind of feeling, sometimes it can be healthy or unhealthy, I think. Sure. Sometimes we hear the songs of the great Bhakti-yogi acharyas, and they really sound, you
But
know.
they're balanced. They're balanced. Do you mind if I jump on that? Yeah, I think we were saying yesterday, there's a pendulum of this self-loathing, and it pendulums back to I'm the greatest. We're neither. We're not the lowest, and we're not the highest. We're tiny, insignificant spiritual sparks in a massive universe. But our significance, we're significant because we're spiritual beings. We're part of God. But and we have to recognize that we have worth from our birth. We have worth from our birth because we're spiritual beings. And so there shouldn't be some type of self-loathing. How can you? There's God in your heart. You can't hate yourself. But we start to feel more and more worthy when we act in a worthy way. When we get self-worth from doing worthy things. We develop self-esteem by doing esteemable activity. So we have to work in this world. This is what we call dharma. Our dharma, or our duties in this world, our contribution, gives us a feeling of self-worth. And if I break that dharma, I start to feel like, what the hell? We got to be careful we don't feed into that shame cycle, which is like a toilet bowl. We suck ourselves down more and more. And I want to, this is a good, and if this is a common thing for you, this pendulum swing, we have this group, the Bhakti Recovery Group, and they're very, very good. And because let's face it, if you're really suffering psychologically with a lack of self-worth, there's an issue there that you have to address, and it's going to come up and again, because the pendulum is I'm the best. That I'm the best thing is going to screw up your bhakti. So you need some type of therapy with that. The Bhakti Recovery Group is spiritually based with Sweet Baby Krishna as the center. And therapy 50 minutes a week at $250 a session is just not going to help, and oftentimes not practical for a lot of people. It's useful, but not the most practical when you're really struggling. You need like a Bhakti Recovery sponsor who you can call or contact 24/7, because sometimes our senses overwhelm us 24/7. So it's okay that we're all sort of dented cans out there, but we have to figure that out. How dented am I? Am I really suffering with this lack of self-worth, or regulation? Like I mentioned about regulating beer, and the message board lit up with the Bhakti Recovery people. It's like, no beer, no, not once every other day, because there are certain times when it's destroying us. And you have to draw a line in the sand. I do not go there anymore. But as parents, just like I've got kids, I tell one of my kids, my older kid, Rocco, I say, okay, Rocco, I want you to clean up this room. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Come back, the whole place is clean. With my little son, it's like a kidnapping and negotiation with him. Okay, listen, I give a pound of Tootsie Rolls, and we'll get cotton candy later, and one of those donuts from the donut plant, if you put your socks in the suitcase. So with different people you're dealing with, you're going to have people, and sponsors know this, as well as herbal physicians know this. You can't give too much medicine sometimes, or people would just move away. And there'll be people who they're so broken or addicted that they keep getting into Bhakti Recovery and keep leaving Bhakti Recovery. So there are some bottom lines to really get clean with alcohol and drugs. There's strong lines in the sands. But sometimes if we want to keep a person, we just say, then you can't do it, then you regulate. But I'm going to leave that up to the Bhakti Recovery gurus.
And just one last thought about that is that every step that you make towards truth, or you make towards God, actually it can feel good. And it's a step forward when it's like, it's one thing to be indulging your senses and not even realize that it's a problem. And it's a step forward when you realize it's a problem.
Yeah.
And so in one sense, that feeling of weakness or unworthiness, if you feel like, now I get it, I really understand where I'm at, and I'm ready to deal with this, then that's good. I am unworthy, but I'm going to deal with it. That's like a healthy, and it can even feel good. But when it starts to immobilize you or make you feel hopeless, then that's illusion, and it is wrapped up in ego as well. And so that we need help with. And always good to have. You're saying a AA sponsor. and even if it's not that urgent or extreme, to have good friends that you're kind of, even one good friend, that you're kind of going through this together and encouraging one another, and that makes a big difference too.
Another, a beautiful point, Danielle, is that, I don't know how acute your pain is, but some people really acutely suffer in this material world. They're going through some acute, sharp pains, and I've got some good news for them. There's some other people who've been through acute pain. Draupadi was going through acute pain when she was being disrobed. Indra, when he sort of like was humiliated, humiliating what Indra went through when he tried to rain on Sri Krishna, and steal the horse in the Bhagavatam, humiliating things. Sukadev Goswami had a death sentence. He was going to, Maharaj Pariksit had a death sentence. He was going to die. Imagine you go to the doctor, you got 7 days to live. So all these are tragic situations. If you're in a tragic situation, we get it. We know people who have been in tragic situations. But the people I've just mentioned, they all dealt with their tragic situation by taking shelter to Krishna. I met a lot of old friends, and they've said to me, "How you been?" And truthfully, the last couple of weeks I've just been really struggling, in all honesty. And I've just decided if I'm going through struggle, I just cry to Krishna. I'm okay. We're going to struggle. It's okay to struggle. That's part of the seasonal changes of this world. You just cry to Krishna. Expect struggle once you get a body. Did everybody here have a body? Just checking. Yeah, they seem all embodied. Expect struggle.
There may be a few here that aren't.
There are a couple unembodied here, people I can't see right now. But you just throw those tears and you throw, Krishna, you take care of this. I can't take this anxiety or fear, or you take this from me. And you offer it back. So that's another way to deal with it too. The Krishna, I'm going to let you worry about controlling my senses. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to chant today. Like that one? I'm going to chant that way? Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got. I like this handheld microphone. I feel like I'm on stage. All right, everybody. Can't do this with mine. This is from Lamenia. Oh, in Discord they use code names. You think that's their real name? Lamenia?
I don't know.
Lamenia via Discord. There's a whole Discord. Who's on Discord here? Anybody? Thanks. All right, okay. People do it. It's interesting, Discord. It's a whole community that the Patreon people have. Harry Bowl. This is something I've always wondered, but may be a silly question. Why is Lord Ram's name specifically in the Maha Mantra and not Vishnu or Vasudev or any other infinite expansions, avatars of Krishna? Kaustubha.
People asked Srila Prabhupada about Ram's name in the Maha Mantra, and he said, you can take it different ways, but especially when we chant the name Rama in the Maha Mantra, it means Krishna, right? What does Rama mean?
Krishna.
Very good.
I passed the hot seat.
What does it literally mean, though?
It means a reservoir of great joy and pleasure.
Yeah, so it means a reservoir of pleasure. So when you're chanting that mantra, Hare Krishna, it's Radha and Krishna, right? Hare is a calling out to Radha, Krishna is a calling out to Krishna, and it's so it's Hare Krishna. That's Radha Krishna. Oh Radha, oh Krishna, oh Radha, oh Krishna, and then Radha, and then you get to Radha Ramana. That's Radha Ramana. Like there's the deity of Radha Ramana in Vrindavan. It means he's the one that gives pleasure to Radha. So when we say Rama there, we can think of it like that. Radha Ramana. That Krishna is the one that gives pleasure to. Again, this mantra is like our central meditation. It's the most fundamental mantra, and it's the most fundamental meditation that we have on this particular path, and it's referring to God. How's it referring to God? He's Krishna, which means he's all attractive. Everything about him is powerfully attractive, incredibly beautiful, and incredibly captivating. And he's Rama. He gives pleasure. You know, this is the conception of the God that we're meditating on. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, it's Radha Krishna in both ways. It's all attractive Krishna. It's Krishna, the giver of pleasure. And they're going back and forth. You know, different bhakti yogis, important bhakti yogis, acharyas in the past, they give their commentary on the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and what it means. And, you know, they interpret it different ways, just like it's like they're going back and forth, like it's a dance, you know. If you begin to think more deeply about this, when I first wasn't shown and exposed to, it's funny because someone asked me yesterday, like, well, what was the first Rath Yatra you saw here or something? I was sitting in this park and all these Hare Krishnas invaded the park. I was sitting here like, you know, I was probably like 15 years old and saying, well, like, what's going on? Like, who are these people? What are they doing? And they're chanting this mantra, you know, Hare Krishna.
Like a fairy came and said, "You one day will be at this park with them," and then flew away. No, fairy, come back.
No. And and when I was exposed to the mantra, it seemed to me very, I don't know what the right word is, but just odd. You know, they're just saying this back and forth again and again and again. And I think even like sometimes when people get into, like they may get into it because of the philosophy. It all makes sense, but still as mantra, it doesn't really, why this, you know, why not just one like a, you know, an om or, you know, something more simple. And you got this back and forth kind of thing. It seems a little, I think even the way that people often respond to it is like, it's like a little bit kitschy or something like that, you know, like, oh, Hare Krishna, Rama, Rama, you know, but they don't understand. Yeah, well, but they don't understand the depth of it, right? The depth of it. As you get deeper into it, you realize, oh, this is the perfect mantra. The way that it's going back and forth between Sri Krishna, the all-attractive, beautiful, kind, giver of pleasure. You know, and the more that you read about him and understand him, when you just say that name, what it brings to mind is so rich. And then Hare is calling out to Radha, you know, Radha, like the supreme, you know, possessor of devotional love. Anything that we know of love, that's coming, you know, pleasure is coming from him, devotion, love is coming from her, true love. It becomes the most beautiful mantra. And the way that it's going back and forth now is not kitschy at all. It's some absolutely beautifully, perfectly composed mantra that can also, you know, captivate the mind. And so when especially when, you know, Prabhupada did say it could mean Balaram. Prabhupada was saying different things, but especially, you know, when you get a little deeper into it, generally the Bhakti yogis they're thinking of Radha Krishna. When they say Rama, they're thinking of Krishna. You like to add anything?
I like that. What you got for me?
Okay. Question? This actually works with the.
Unembodied.
This actually works with it when you got a good. I hope it's not making a lot of sound with like the cable, but we'll check it later. But this works, right?
Yeah, I like this.
We can actually do it together now.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Okay. This is coming from Craig from the UK. Hello, Craig.
Hello, Craig. Cheers.
Okay. So it might be Irish. You try that one?
What's that?
I say he might be Irish. All we know is he's from the UK.
Oh, UK means Ireland too.
Part of Ireland.
No.
United Kingdom.
Talk to your host.
UK includes not Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland. Oh, so that's Ireland. Oh, because you know. Oh, you see another distinction. Even people from there don't know how to figure the whole thing out. Okay. I mean, Northern Ireland.
You didn't figure it out.
All right. He may be Northern Irish. I mean, a person from Northern Irish, you call him Irish,
Scottish.
right? Yeah. Hmm?
Yeah, you know.
Not all of them over there, I'll tell you that. Okay, here we go. Haribol, he says Craig. I very much appreciate the wonderful daily classes that you hold and take great inspiration from them. Previously, you have talked about the importance of forgiveness. Oh, this is a tricky, tough, subtle question, Raghunath.
Okay.
You want a hard one? You got it. Previously, you've talked about the importance of forgiveness, and I see the strengths that this brings us. Where an unkind act is historic, I can see forgiveness is key.
That's again, someone hurt you many
And then
time ago.
no, I think he means by historic, like, okay, they did something, but now it's done.
Okay. Yeah.
So that they can see as being helpful. But he says, however, how to deal with ongoing unkindness. If we simply keep forgiving the wrongdoer, they may then see us as weak and continue, or even increase their unkind acts.
I like you that question. Good question. There does come to a point in my life where I realize, and maybe you've realized this too, there's a lot of wrong in the world, both like in my community, both like in the state, in my country, in the world itself. There's a lot of wrongness that I would just love to correct if I would get a magical wand. You know, refugees going here, boom, yeah. The border crisis, boom, you know, or hate crimes, boom. I would love to just fix it all, and it seems like I can, but I can't. There's certain things I can change, and certain things I really can't change. And in Bhakti Yoga, we really zone in on me changing. And part of me changing is me to let go of resentments I hold for people, both historically and if there's people I cannot change that are somehow within my universe. Now, the amazing thing is we actually, just in changing ourselves, you'd be amazed at how many things can change around you just from changing yourself, because we are a large stone thrown in a placid pond, and like that, poetic. Large stone thrown in a placid pond.
That's alliteration.
Yes. And it creates ripple effects that go outward. So I may not be able to change a senator or a president or whatever, but you never know. You never know. It's sort of like I was really into, I mean, you see in my own life when I was younger, I got really into vegetarianism and animal rights, and I thought that was a really important thing to do. And then then my band got bigger, and we wrote songs about it, and the people listened to it, and that changed them. You know what I mean? And then right? And then when we got some interview on a thing, and I said it, and some people read that magazine, that might have changed them also. And then perhaps one of those people was in another one of the listeners who changed was in a position of leadership, and that changed the people in their universe. So now vegetarianism, veganism, animal rights, this is all in the public conversation. It never was before. And so I was one part of that, you know, and I can see how it could have had, it obviously had some type of ripple effect, and that can change things far beyond than what we even know. Changes happened yesterday in the Rath Yatra. People were coming up to us and saying, this podcast really helps me when I struggle. Thank you so much. We don't even know, you don't even know what's going out there. And of course, that person touches another person. How did we all get here? We all got here because someone touched our heart, planted a seed. We saw something in them that we appreciated, and we said, I want that too. And so our changing and being sincere about our change has a maha effect, a maha ripple effect on the rest of the world. It's just
Forget the forgiveness part of the question.
Okay. All right. So yes,
Someone's doing ongoing.
Sure. So I'm saying if they're not if they're not in your control, what can you do about them? Suppose there's a president or a head of state or something like that that's just doing horrible things. You can't change them, perhaps, but you can change yourself, how you relate to the small the small sufferings that are getting caused by you on a regular basis. Of course, if it is how we deal with people in our life that are causing pain or doing really wrongful acts on a regular basis, is we can either cut them, we can confront them, we can either way, we have to forgive them. We either confront them and say, no, you can physically cut them. Don't take this. Just cut them, slash them. No, don't do that. It means you might have to just cut a person out of your life, but you still have got to forgive them. You might have a traumatic boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. that you said, you know what, this cannot go on for my own self, for my own sanity, for my own well-being, for my own safety. It cannot go on. Matter of fact, I may even call the authorities and have you arrested, but that doesn't mean I get a pass on forgiveness.
You know, I'm looking up the word forgive right now, and it says to stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense. And so I don't think that negates the idea that you're not active in like correcting something, right? Or if you can't correct it, it doesn't mean, like, for instance, say someone's just like rude to you, and they're just every day you work with someone and that's just their habit, and you've mentioned, hey, you know, do we have to talk with each other that way? And they were like, yeah, we do. And then, you know, and then you realize they're just not going to change. Okay, so that doesn't justify the behavior. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't speak up and say something about it. But what's going on inside you, that's your own territory. And is it going to do you any good to feel anger or resentful towards them? Yeah. So even if you are being, let's say, offended by someone, it doesn't, and even if they won't change, it doesn't mean that it's still not the best thing for you to forgive them. And if their offense is like perpetual, then maybe your forgiveness will have to be perpetual as well. And it's not that your forgiveness is in any way facilitating their continuation, but it's just you making the best of the bad bargain. Sure. Best for yourself, right? You recognize this is just one little cross I'm going to have to bear in life, you know. But why live in a state of, you know, why, if that's going to be perpetual, I definitely don't want to be in a perpetual state of anger or a perpetual state of resentfulness. So you forgive.
Trying to think of a situation where the person just takes advantage of that.
That could happen.
Yeah, especially I just cut people out of my life if I feel like these guys just aren't.
Sometimes you got to work with someone.
Sometimes you got in a workplace where you're stuck with someone.
Nothing left to do but forgive in that point. As far as I can see.
Yeah, and truthfully, it comes to this thing of the hurt people, right? When people act in a hurtful way, generally they've been hurt, and when we understand sort of their backstory a little bit better, and realize this poor soul is just suffering like anything. Healthy people don't act like this on a perpetual basis. There's a lot of pain going on in there, and we sympathize. We sympathize with. It's a nice meditation, and to find out that backstory. And there's a lot of internal pain people are suffering with, and they just don't know how to cope with it in a healthy way. All righty.
Thank you. I think you got a question for me.
This is from our good friend Gauranga Nishta via the Discord thread. That Discord thread is happening.
He needs a new, well, he's got a good name, so maybe he doesn't need a special name for that.
No, Gauranga Nishta is a cool name. I have a question for the Q&A. What can I do if I have no access to prasad at some point? That's a healthy fear. There is no prasad. And all I can do is get already made boga. It's a story of my life. Should I offer that meal anyway, the same way, right? Yeah. Should I try not to eat until I can find boga that I can offer to the Lord? Should I prepare ahead and make some food at home? All right, she's gone on a road trip, doesn't want to eat the corn chips. He's being very, very strict. So this is different nuances of how serious you want to take this idea of, I only want to eat prasad. Like when we were brahmacharis, we used to bring a big candy stove on tour with us, bring a bag of rice, a bag of dal, and one of those tins of spices, and we would not eat food cooked by non-Brahmins because the consciousness of the food gets infused, the consciousness of the cook gets infused in the food. So if you're working on celibacy, controlling the mind, purifying the consciousness, you become very, very careful about what you eat, right? I'm sure you went through the whole period. I think Kaustubha still, he never goes to restaurants.
I go to Divya's kitchen, but actually I do sometimes, like when I'm traveling, I on occasion I do.
So tell us about, I'm curious, because he has a very high standard of what he puts in his mouth. I appreciate that. I eat a corn chip. I'll dip it in some salsa. Kaustubha would never cross that dangerous territory.
If it was cooked by a devotee, I might.
And it's beautiful. And but so tell me what happens when you step down into the danger zone when you're traveling and you have to eat some compromised piece of bread.
You know, people might say that it's all psychosomatic or something, but I feel it. You know,
You know what? When I was a brahmachari, I felt it too. If I would cross over that line, I just feel very compromised now in a lot of ways because I travel so much. I can't get to. If you're out there and you're listening to this, please cook for me and offer the food when I come to your place.
yeah, and you know, I think an important part of answering this question is to say, you know, the tendency can be to say like something's either right or wrong. You know, it's like, you know, either it's bona fide or it's
Unbonafide.
I thought you were gonna go with an bogus.
Bogus or unbonafide.
Yeah, you know, and you know, some people may draw that kind of line, and that's fine too. You know, but generally, like there's some gradations, and under certain circumstances, you may or may not indulge or you know eat in a certain way. Now, for instance, when Srila Prabhupada was traveling, like on trains and so on, you know, they would pack him some to eat, but sometimes he also did eat like the street food. You know, he would eat something, you know, and he would, but even within that, he would kind of judge a little carefully, you know, what he would eat.
Right.
But he did say this, and sometimes, you know, the disciples say, well, Prabhupada, you know, we don't know if this person's a devotee, where their mind's at, and so on. And Prabhupada say, or he would also say this in terms of offering ingredients that sometimes aren't the best ingredients too.
Oh.
But he would say that when you pay for it, it becomes purified. Right? When you pay.
Because I steal all my food. That's maybe why my consciousness is so low. I've been stealing everything.
Yeah, but in other words, it's you see, because the question here is, do I offer it? You know,
Right.
and it's like once you've paid for it, it's kind of yours, and now now you offer it. You put in sacrifice to earn that money, and your sacrifice goes into getting that ingredient, and then you offer it. You know, so there's leeway. I don't eat in any restaurant in New York City but Divya's Kitchen. Right? Never. I just don't do it. But if I'm in another city and I'm living there for 5 days, you know, what to speak if I don't have a kitchen?
Yeah.
You know, then I'm kind of stuck. And I've been in situations like that. But I do, after a few days, I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore. You know, it's just like enough of this. So I actually really do feel it. You know, and when you eat food that's cooked by like a pure devotee, you ever had to eat someone like some really advanced? Well, yeah, when my wife cooks, yeah, you feel it. When you eat my wife's cooking, you feel that.
Yes, very, very high.
It's like this isn't ordinary food, and it's people. You know, people would say to me sometimes like, "Hold it, you became a monk when you're like 21 years old. You're like a young man, and it's like you're celibate, and it's how could you do that? You know, and
Celibacy
Yeah.
is, I found it was a necessity to eat cooked food.
That's my point. Is like, well, if you, there's so much that goes into that. It's not like you just stop having sex, but you take up other activities. You take up chanting. You take up eating only prasadam. You know, and these things, they facilitate it. They make it possible. You know? So it's a very real thing. So just to wrap up the question, if let's say I don't eat anything without offering it. Even if I'm in a restaurant, I offer it. I know it's not a great offering, you know. I offered feeling a little insufficient in offering it, but that's my vow. I don't eat anything that's not offered to Krishna first. Yeah.
Did we offer that vegan pizza yesterday? Oh, they did. They did. Thank you. Saved me.
Okay, I think we got.
Okay. Good.
We got one. We can do one more question.
It was offered.
Okay. To whom? Shani?
Shani. Shani also needs to eat.
Okay, one last question here. Okay, it's a quick one. Easy one. You ready?
Yes.
What versions of the Ramayana?
Who is this from?
This is from Cameron J.
Cameron
via the
J.
Discord thread. What versions of the Ramayana and Mahabharata does Wisdom of the Sages recommend that aren't comic books?
Comic books.
Okay, it can be comic. I said that. He didn't say that. So.
My two faves. My two faves are both by the same author, Krishna Dharma. You can get them on Audible. You can get them on Amazon. Krishna Dharma's. I also like Kamala Subramaniam's Mahabharata as well. Kamala Subramaniam's. But I've been leaning lately towards they've got to be big, because when they're big, you can start to really fall in love with the characters more. I've read some small Mahabharats and had my students read some small Mahabharats, and I realized, you know what? You need to develop a deep affection for Arjuna, for Yudhisthira. You need to understand who Duryodhana is and what his story is. When I was a brahmachari, though, I had M.N. Dutt copy of the Mahabharata, a very big Mahabharata, which was sort of cool. It's like when you read these gigantic Mahabharats.
Oh, did it have the entire Mahabharata?
Yeah, it's just like, but I ended up never reading it. I had great enthusiasm to read it to the point where I bought it and put it on a trunk. Got a trunk, put it in. Which ones do you like?
Same as you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like Krishna Dharma's, and I also like sometimes to read Kamala Subramaniam's. There we go. Okay. And that's it for today.
That's it. Well, thanks everybody here joining us live. And thanks for Mara. She's been working a lot, and still she's here. Look, thank you, Mara. And there's Jiu-Jitsu Nath.